Well, it is day 2 of Oscar Pistorius' sentencing proceedings. The Paralympian was described as a broken man yesterday by a state-appointed psychologist. But the state is not convinced. It's seeking a minimum of 15 years in jail. Annika Larsen is outside the North Gauteng High Court for us this morning ahead of today's proceedings. Annika, a very good morning to you. Yesterday, we heard Kherinel tearing into Professor Jonathan Scholz for what he had to say about Oscar Pistorius. Give us some idea of that exchange.
Good morning to you both. Yes, yesterday really was the time that the defence had to paint a psychological profile of Oscar Pistorius as a man who really should not be going to jail. It'll be interesting to see whether they ask for a suspended sentence, in fact, or correctional supervision, or in fact even hospitalisation, because the psychologist that they themselves hired to do a psychological report was the same psychologist that was used as the court appointed during the actual trial at Vescopis. And the psychologist said that this is a broken man. He has totally lost his spirit. He has high suicide risk. He's got panic disorder, anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder. In fact, his condition has deteriorated since 2014. And if he were his patient, he should not be even at home. He should be in hospital. This is a man who's shown true remorse. He's giving back to the community. He's giving back to society. And he should not spend any time in jail. Kherinel tore into that, and I think if Kherinel could use the word brat, he probably would. That's me taking a liberty there, but that's certainly the sense you get. And he's said, you know, have you said anything about the fact that Oscar Pistorius was verbally aggressive and abusive towards prison personnel when he first arrived? And the psychologist said, well, you know, I didn't think that was an important part of the report. It wasn't a very well done report done by a prison psychologist. Did you know that Oscar Pistorius had kept illegal drugs in his cell? And the psychologist said, yes, well, those were antidepressants. They weren't necessarily illegal substances. And so this back and forth between Kherinel and Professor Jonathan Scholz, who I think held himself up fairly well, and I think it was also fairly awkward for Kherinel because he had been accepted as a state-appointed psychologist during the actual trial. But Kherinel gave it his best without completely being able to destroy the credibility of the defence witness.
But all in all, Annika, the professor painting what kind of picture? What was the impression that he's left on those who were in court with his report on Oscar Pistorius then?
As a completely broken man, as a man who has lost his spirit, he's almost lost the will to live. Well, those weren't his words, but he said he really sees his fate as in the hands of God. He'd be far better punished, if you like, by serving the community. And that really speaks to what Judge Masipa will have to weigh up. If you think of those scales of justice, when you think about a judge, they really come into play during sentencing, because she'll have to weigh up the best interests of the community and what serves the accused, or in this case Oscar Pistorius, the man who's been found guilty of River Steenkamp's murder.
So what was the reaction to those who were in court to this assessment of Oscar Pistorius, from him himself, from his family, and River Steenkamp's family, who were also present in court?
He seemed very puffy-eyed and weepy in court, although he wasn't very loud with his crying and sobbing. Certainly you could see tears streaming down his face. He seemed very anxiety prone. He seemed stressed. He cut a very lonely figure sitting in the courtroom. His family members appeared supportive. His sister Ame had flown back from London to be at his side. Riva and June and Barry Steenkamp seemed much stronger mentally and physically than they had appeared during the trial. And it's understood that Barry Steenkamp may take the stand for the state.
All right, and who are we expecting to hear from today, Annika?
We're expecting to hear from the founder of a charity organisation that possibly deals with the victims of landmines and children who've been injured in landmines that we understand Oscar Pistorius has been engaged with, might even have a job offer with, and the founder of this organisation will probably testify about the good, the hard work, we presume, that he's putting back into the community, because as his psychologist said, all he wants to do is help people.
All right, thanks very much. We'll leave it there for now. That's Annika Larsen outside the North Gauteng High Court ahead of day 2 of sentencing proceedings in the Oscar Pistorius murder trial.